Hello, welcome to the very first live community digital event. Thank you all so much, very much for joining. But please remember to also go to the live community event page where you can comment there, post questions during the event, and keep the conversation going after the event concludes. And with all that being said, let's go ahead and hand it over to Nick Curtis.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Joe. Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Nick Curtis, and this presentation we're going to cover is going to be around the best practice assessment. So this is our Palo Alto's offering of the best practice assessment tool. It's a free tool designed by Palo Alto Networks. It's available to everyone, sales, internal employees, customers, partners. It's key to driving the successful implementation of our products and also ultimately better security outcomes and customer success. As we look at this stat right here, you can see that a large percentage of customers, they're not enabling their subscriptions or firewall features correctly, putting them at a severe risk. So by adding capabilities such as wildfire, SSL decryption, and others, we can contribute to both detecting and preventing attacks. The best practice assessment tool compares your existing policies and your configurations versus best practices. It's going to help you to assess the maturity and the effectiveness of your security posture, giving you visibility into how you're applying your security policies across your organization. The BPA will help you get the most out of your investment of your Palo Alto products. As we know, many companies have security gaps. It's like locking the front door, but you might leave your window open. You need to have complete coverage. You need to have a consistent security policy. And we're here to give you this tool to give you the knowledge and the industry best practices. So just like a doctor's checkup, you want to focus on your preventative care rather than reacting when there's an issue. So if you have a chance to run the BPA, we suggest that it's run once a quarter, every 90 days. You can always run it even more frequently if you wish, if there's a significant change to your network. When you run this tool, you're going to get a personalized, risk-based action plan to help you identify your security needs. So as we look at the BPA, it is a security posture analysis for your next generation firewalls or your panorama created by Palo Alto Networks. It's a very quick assessment that you can run through self-service through the customer service portal and other options, which we'll discuss later. Right now, there's over 200 best practice checks that are used to identify gaps in your security that could cause exposure to an attack. The report that you get once you run a BPA comes in an HTML format that's password protected, and it has various information and tabs listed by policies, objects, networks, and devices. The BPA is going to compare your current configuration against best practices. Each policy, security profile, and configuration is parsed to see if it aligns with the best practices. If any don't, the BPA will provide guidance on how you can remediate that issue. The BPA report details which best practices and which are not being followed. So now you have a simple and free way to strengthen your cybersecurity posture. You can also drive the efficiency of your security teams through an easy-to-follow roadmap and recommendations. The BPA surfaces and demystifies security holes so action can be taken quickly and organizations truly know the state of their security prevention. When looking at a BPA, it's going to help you to reduce the risk to exposure, educate you about vendor best practices, and helping to reduce and manage risk, providing confidence in the security capabilities that you have. The SelfService BPA is an easily accessible tool through the customer support portal. You see on this page on the left-hand side, underneath the tools dropdown, there is a section called Best Practice Assessment. As a user on the customer support portal, you would need to be either a super user or a BPA user added to your profile. When you land on the Best Practice Assessment page, the first page you're going to see is a list of all of your historical BPAs that you've previously ran. You also see that in the top right-hand corner, there will be a way where you can generate a new BPA. This walks you through a wizard-like process so you can generate the BPA, get your HTML output, and your executive summary. The first three steps is you need to the steps to go through this, as you can see on the screen, is you want to upload your tech support file. You want to classify your areas of architecture and then ultimately generate your BPA. We'll be going through this as a demo once we get through our slide deck here this morning as well. As well as the customer support portal, there are other options to run the BPA. As an internal employee or a partner, we offer a customer success site that allows you to generate a BPA on behalf of your customer. We also have a BPA API, which is available for you to take advantage of. All of this information can be shared and seen and learned more about on our live community BPA tools page. We'll provide a link to that later in the deck as well. Let's take a minute and look at the different parts of the BPA once you generate and receive your BPA completion. The first thing you're going to get is going to be your BPA executive summary. So this summary is shown within the customer support portal. You will always have access to see your executive summary when you log into the portal for past BPAs. One thing to remember, we do not save the detailed BPA HTML reports. And that's really just due to security and privacy concerns. So when looking at the executive summary, it's going to provide you a high-level summary of the BPA and your security profile adoption. You can see whether your company has improved since the previous BPA as well as it tracks your trending. The executive summary can be printed to PDF, it can be saved, it can be emailed. The full BPA report is downloaded to your computer as soon as you finish your BPA. And remember, since we do not save that full detailed HTML, it's up to you as you generate the BPA to save that detailed HTML locally. When looking at the BPA and looking at the detailed HTML, you see that there's two main components. There's the best practice assessment itself, and then there's the security policy capability adoption heat maps. When looking at the first component of the adoption summary view, it's going to allow us to identify what, where, and how you're applying your prevention capabilities across your platform. The other, the BPA section, it allows us to compare each configuration to best practices. This way we can validate your network and make sure that it's configured as you intended it to be. The adoption summary view provides an overview of the overall adoption of security capabilities and features for your device. It's shown as a percentage and it's enabled shown as a percentage of enabled allow rules using a valid security profile. Several summary charts are provided. Those are some of those include the overall adoption, the adoption versus your industry peers, the best practice mode, the adoption on application, and user-based policies. In the parentheses is the percentage change in the adoption since your last BPA. As I said earlier, we're tracking your BPAs over time, and we're showing if you're improving or decreasing since your previous BPA. Moving on, as we look at our BPA adoption heat maps, the default mode is the adoption mode. Here, you'll see color-coded heat maps, which will show where your security policy is strong and where your device's security policy capability adoption could be improved. The percentage value is based on the total number of allow rules. The higher the percentage, the higher the adoption of those security capabilities within your operating environment. There's column filters that allow you to filter the heat map by zone source, areas of architecture, destination zone, rules enabled, serial number, and others. Adoption of the subscriptions are listed in the top columns. Additional filters are also able to be used to narrow down the specific device groups and also traffic between the specific zones. Next, I want to note the best practice mode, which enabled, it's going to show heat maps, which are updated with security profiles configured in the recommended best practice manner. The BPA does not count disabled rules. If something's not adopted, it is shown as 0% and no color. As we look at the BPA section, you'll see on the top on the screenshot where it says best practice assessment, you'll see that this takes you to the best practice assessment area of the HTML. This is going to check your configuration against hundreds of best practice checks. The BPA summary page is going to give you your summaries for capability, control category, your NIST, your class, and your CIS control security controls. The results of the evaluation are grouped along the top of the page by policies, objects, and networks. You can click on each of these to see the results. As you can see on this screenshot, there is a red, there's a red circle with a number in it. The number in the red circle in the left-hand column along the top column indicates the failed best practice checks for that feature or for that tab. The blue circle show filter button enables the data to be customized as needed. There's also question marks that provide additional information on failed checks, rationale, and most importantly, we have links to videos that support documentation for each of these actions. These videos are also found on our live community BPA tools page. As we know, many companies have initiatives around specific compliance frameworks. We've recently added many of these frameworks to the BPA. The BPA provides a summary view as part of the executive report on your overall adoption, your comparison to your industry average, in alignment with industry security standards such as NIST cybersecurity framework and your CIS critical security controls. You can see on this screenshot where it lists and goes through all of these security controls, and it gives you a percentage as to where each one is landing. Here you can see we've listed some of our important resources, and I've talked about some of these previously already this morning. As you can see, we have, I mentioned, we do have a BPA Live Community Tools page. This page is available through Live Community, which offers our release notes. It has a blog and a discussion section. It has valuable videos talking about how to run a BPA on the customer support portal, some overview videos about the BPA. It has some detailed explanation about the HTML and the executive summary, as well as information on how to sign up if you want to take advantage of the BPA API. One of the last important features on the BPA Live community, as I said, is a list of all of our miniature videos that go over our best practice checks. So these are the same videos that you'll find links to when looking at the BPA HTML. We also have a tech docs section for BPA, which goes through more valuable information about improving your security posture. And if you want a one-pager regarding the best practice assessment, we do offer a BPA solution brief. So now that we've gone through everything about BPA, let's talk about what your next steps are. So the first thing we'd like you to do is we need you to run that BPA. Then you can sit down once you get the results and talk through those results and recommendations with your Palo Alto salesperson. As I mentioned earlier, we really want everybody to set a regular BPA cadence. Ideally, it should be run every 90 days or once a quarter. Of course, if you're making changes and you want to see how those changes are negatively or positively impacting your security posture, you're welcome to run your BPA as many times as you want. Also, a new feature in our customer support portal is once you run your BPA, if you reach the 90-day threshold and you have not run a BPA, our notification center will alert you and let you know that it's been 90 days since you've run your last BPA. Of course, and as you can see at the bottom of this page, we do have a BPA email set up. If you have any questions, any comments, or you just want to tell us how awesome the tool is, that can be reached through bpa@paloaltonetworks.com. And with that, I'd like to thank you all for attending this event. As promised, I do want to walk through a quick demo on how to generate a BPA on the customer support portal. Bear with me one second. Let me switch my screen here.
And Nick, so the question did come in about, they wanted to know if they could save the detailed HTML page.
So yes, when you generate the BPA through the customer support portal or through the customer success site, you do receive the detailed HTML BPA bundle. In the bundle has the detailed HTML. It has your failed best practice checks. It also has a copy of your executive summary. Once that's presented to you, it would be the user's responsibility to save that locally so they can access that later. We don't save that internally due to security and privacy reasons. The only thing that we do save is the executive summary. Hopefully that answered the question, Joe.
Hopefully it did.
I think we're good. So now I think you guys can see my screen, and I'm looking at the customer support portal. And as I mentioned earlier, as you look at this, you can see the history of your best practice assessments that you've run. Now, this is an internal Palo Alto account, but you can see as you go through here, you can see the date that it was generated, the device it was generated against, the serial number, the model, and then the date of the tech support file. Over here on the left, when looking at this, you see if I hover over this little chart icon, that will take me to the executive summary for that BPA. As I just spoke about, we do save the executive summary, but it's the detailed HTML that we do not save. So once you're on this page, to generate a BPA, as I said, there's a 3-step wizard and it's very easy to go through. You can start that by going to the top right-hand side of the screen and clicking on Generate New BPA. Here you can see this takes us to a screen, and let me increase the size of that. So here you can see once you land on this screen, as I mentioned, the 3 steps are upload, classify, and review. And we're going to go through that right now. So you can see here, you can either drag your tech support file or browse to upload it. We're going to find a lab tech support file so we can use this. You can see once it's uploaded, you get a progress bar that starts to show the progress. One thing I want to note is dependent on the size of your tech support file and obviously the speed of your internet, that upload could take a little bit of time. I've seen it take up to a couple of minutes when we have tested with very large tech support files. As you can see, once this has been uploaded, it takes me to the next step, which is going to be our architecture classification. This is where you're going to take your area of architecture and map each zone to your area of architecture. You can see that as you see your zone in which device group it belongs to, you can use your drop down and you can pick the classification that each one belongs to. If you have multiple if you have multiple zones that you want to identify to the same classification, you could go through and you could check multi-select the zones you want and then use your drop down and assign that accordingly. Over here on the left, if you're unsure of your architecture classification, we've listed all of them out. And if you hover over each one, you see a question mark that once hovered over, it gives you a tooltip, which gives you a definition of that classification. Of course, if you don't care to do your area of architecture mapping, you can go to the bottom and you can always skip this step. Or once you've completed your area of architecture mapping, you would simply click next. So we're going to skip this step and go to the final step is where you want to generate your BPA. Here you'll see this is very important because if your BPA, it's going to be mapped back to the industry that we have listed for you internally. If this industry is not correct, or if you just want to compare yours against a different industry, you can always use the drop down and pick a different industry. In addition to the BPA being offered on our next generation firewalls and Panorama, we do also offer the BPA to be generated against a Prism Access. And if you've uploaded a tech support file for a Prism Access, not seen in this exact demo, there would be another dropdown where you can select to generate your BPA against a Prism Access. Once you've done your selections of your industry, confirmed that, and if you have a Prism Access tech support file and you've selected if you want to generate that, you would then simply click Generate and Download Report. What this is doing is this is generating the report, and it's going to take us to the executive summary. Something very key to remember is while this is happening and you land on the executive summary, in the background, the system is downloading your detailed BPA bundle, which includes that HTML. It's key that you remain on this screen until that BPA is generated and you receive that message. I don't know if you can see with my screen share, but there is a pop-up down here that tells me that the detailed HTML report has been downloaded to my machine. So from there, I can then open up that HTML and save it locally. But as you're looking at this here, you can see that we landed on our executive summary. And here you can see it walks you through different best practice summaries. You can click down here and see your class summary, your CIS critical security controls that we talked about earlier. And then you can go across the top and there's different tabs where you can view your security profile adoption. This is key because this shows your overall adoption. And then it also shows compared against your industry with high technology in this case. Next, we're going to look at our application and user control adoption. And you can see that this shows your app ID, your user ID, and your service port adoption percentages. As we further click through, you'll get to your logging in your zone protection adoption, your decryption summary, and then also there's some recommended readings. When I talk about the recommended readings on a couple of slides back, when we were talking about the different resources available to you, we have a whole tech docs library set up, which walks you through, getting started with your best practice assessment and how to make changes and how to make improvements in your security posture. These links right here will take you to those tech docs to guide you through that experience. Of course, you can then choose to download your executive summary. As I said, you can download it as a PDF, you can email it, you can save it locally. Once you're done looking at your executive summary, you can simply go back to view your history of your BPA, and it would take you back to the original screen that we first landed on for this demo that shows you your best practice assessment, all of your historical best practice assessments that you've run. So that concludes our demo of how to generate a BPA on the customer support portal. Remember, for our internal and our partner users, we do have a customer success site set up so you can generate a BPA on behalf of your customers. And as well, on our live community BPA tools page, we have valuable information about how to sign up and set up your BPA API.
Nick, there are a couple questions that just came in.
Excellent.
One was, they were asking, you talked about the Prism Access BPA. You don't have an example to show, do you?
Let's see. Give me 1 second. I do, right here. Let me run through that real quick. Great question. Put me on the spot. I was a little nervous. Good thing I had that one ready. Let's see. So as you can see, I went through and I simply chose another lab device tech support file. As I'm on the internal Palo Alto account, I'm going to go through.
Share the other screen.
I am not sharing. I apologize. There we go. My apologies. So I've already uploaded the tech support file. As you guys saw earlier, I've gotten to the area of architecture mapping page. We're going to skip this step here. And here you can see when we're reviewing this is that screen where you can choose your high tech, your industry. Obviously, and one thing to note is your default industry is based on the Dun and Bradstreet database that we keep. Of course, you always have that option to change that industry if you wish. And then here is where we see our different BPA report types. It's going to default to Strata, but if you have uploaded a tech support file for a Prism Access, you can always choose Prism Access and then generate and download the report. Really, the only difference is that last dropdown on the review step of the wizard where you want to choose to generate your BPA against the Prism Access. All right. Hopefully that helped.
Yeah, I think that was a good one there. There was another one coming in asking if there are any plans for a BPA on steroids version so VARs can add more value to running the BPAs versus a customer running themselves, integration with auto assistant to find bugs, etc.
We have a very large roadmap for the future of BPA. We have a backlog of features. That is one of our features is to expand the capabilities and the reach of BPA, expand where the BPA is accessed from, adding additional BP checks, adding additional filtering options. So when you're looking at your BPA, we actually even have, and this is by a very large customer inflow of requests, is the ability to actually save the detailed HTML to the customer support portal. I know that it's sometimes a hassle when you go back and you want to look at your detailed HTML and maybe you forgot to save it, or somebody else ran it and you don't know who ran it, or you can't reach them. We are trying to build out a feature where the customer will be able to opt in and basically let Palo Alto know that you're okay if we save your detailed HTML. So we do have a very large roadmap. Having said that, our BPA alias, which is bpa@paloaltonetworks.com, is always open. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions or new feature enhancements, feel free to let us know. And we'd be happy to talk with you and let you know if that's already on our radar or if it's something that we need to talk further about and vet through as a possible future enhancement.
Very good. There was a question asking as far as like where the BPA data is stored. Kim helped answer it online, saying that the metadata is stored by Palo Alto Networks to track adoption trends, industry benchmarks. However, we don't store the rules or any sensitive data, but where is it still stored?
Yeah, it's still stored in internal IT managed systems. It's stored and saved, encrypted in save, transited, all the security measures are taken. We are in transitioning our systems to GCP, all the processing servers and database and so on, but that's a work in progress, but it's all internal at this point.
Very good. There was a question asking as far as if they've had an RMA and needed to change the serial number. If you send an email to the BPA team, which is the BPA at paloaltonetworks.com, they can modify the historical data so the trending does not break.
Yes, I think that's doable.
Also, a question came in too about what PanOS versions do the BPA tool support?
The PanOS versions that the company supports, as simple as that.
Yes, yes, exactly. Whichever ones that the company supports, the BPA is available for.
Very good. Well, it really doesn't look like anything else is popping in here. Anything else?
I think I want to hear more from the feedback we received about capabilities for WAR and integration. Please reach us on BPA email alias. We'll be happy to take it further.
If everything looks good, I think that concludes this event. Thank you all so very much for joining the very first live community digital event. Big thanks to Nick and all the others for all their hard work. As we said, this event has been recorded and it will be posted to the live community YouTube channel. So please be sure to check that out. If you missed any part of this event and want to rewatch it, we will be posting all that information to the live community event page for this event. We'll have all details on the recording as well as questions and answers, even have a link to a FAQ page that we have for that. I guess one last thing, for a demo client, can we use the BPA?
Of course, we do have a sample BPA reports in our live site. We keep them latest and greatest when we keep updating our sprints and working on newer updates. So feel free to download the sample documents. If there's any specific you want, reach us and I will be happy to help out.
Great. I guess that concludes the event. Thank you everybody so much for joining in.